So one thing I'm going to do is, let me mention off the top, is I'm going to record the lectures, just have Zoom running in the background, so that God forbid someone does miss class, or you can always kind of go back and rewatch or re-listen to it, just as another resource. I don't want to make it so that you're choosing to do that instead of show up to class. So I may not be like doing all of the work on the overhead cam. I'll probably be using the board a lot, especially with you guys because it's a smaller class. But I will have that additional resource, and I'll talk a little bit more about our YouTube page here in a second, but I will kind of be posting these so they will be available. There we go. So I guess I should have started off by introducing myself. I'm Professor Lannis. I don't think I talked to you guys last year. I can't remember. Because this is most of your second year, right? So we've had the great privilege of having Professor Nesson at this point. You now get your other econ person. Oh, you probably guessed it 201 as well, didn't you? Or no, 201 is micro. What's macro? 202? Can't remember if they call it the same for you guys. But we're going to be a little bit different than kind of those econ courses, right? So this is an econ class, but it's really statistics, right? It's business statistics. So I always say that I would call it, a more accurate term would be applied statistics, because we are in the business school. I'll show you a lot of examples that are like business related examples, some marketing, some finance stuff. But I'm going to show you examples from all over the place, right? We might look at shark bite data. We're going to be thinking about a lot of different data sets, because once we know how to do something with one of them, you can really just apply it to any other type of data we're looking at, whether it's business data, really, you name it. There's probably a data set that exists out there for it. So what is this class? We'll kind of go through kind of the syllabus stuff, the structure of the class, and we'll dive a little bit into just kind of what the material is going to look like, moving forward in this class. So what do you need? We have a book. I would suggest just find the access code. I'm going to use the online homework platform of Connect through McGraw-Hill. I'll also be putting some things up there, and I'll show you in a second that there's a couple things on Canvas already that aren't assignments. They're just there for additional kind of review or help if you want to use them, additional tools if you want to use them. So that access code will give you, access to work on those homeworks on the Connect platform, and also these additional help files or help assignments. Most of them are going to be called Learn Smarts. Okay? You don't need a physical copy of the book. I'm not going to be assigning questions out of the back or anything like that. If you really want a physical copy, my suggestion, buy the access code and then go out and find like a first edition of this book and buy that used. You'll save, I don't know, you probably pay $10, $15 for that first edition of this book. I think we're on the 4th edition now, right? And all they're doing by doing that is just trying to sell the book again. They don't change, they don't change that much, to be honest with you. But they don't let me use the first edition. So we have to use the 4th edition. We have to use that access code. If you want a physical copy of the book just for another resource, I'd go out and find like a 1st or 2nd edition of it. You can get it for real cheap. Here's the link to the Connect website to register for. Have you guys used this in a class before? So you probably already have kind of a registered name and password. I think the easiest way, so like you can use this link and everything. I always tell people the easiest way is, so under assignments on Canvas, I put up these Learn Smarts, which really just kind of walk you through and ask you questions. They're set at 0 points. These are the ones that I mentioned that would just be like for help, right? So if you click on one of these icons, it won't send me there because I think I'm signed in. So if you go launch, it should take you right to our section, right? If you aren't registered, it'll like prompt you through the registration command, which if you've signed up for Spotify or Netflix, you can sign up for this, right? It's like you're just kind of following the prompts. But if you're having some difficulty with that, I also put a Connect registration. It kind of has some different screenshots to walk you through it. But it is pretty easy, but that is also up on Canvas under Files. That Connect registration help is there as well, okay? And I think I even have a slide in a second that does it line by line as well. But so you've got, I think it's in the syllabus too. So it's a couple of different places, but that one that PDF that I'm pointing out here in Canvas has some screenshots that might be the most helpful if you're having any issues with that, okay? So those first 2 Learn Smarts, I think there's probably a date set on them, but They're not due. They're just there for an additional help. The first Connect assignment, I'll probably assign it at the beginning of next week. A lot of the times, I'll give bare minimum 2 weeks for you to work on an assignment. So it's not like I'll ever assign something and then you have to have it done before the next class. You'll always have a pretty bulk, period of time where you can kind of, with your other classes, adjust how much time you need to spend on what days, to get those done. All right, so we kind of showed you that. I said access to a PC or phone so you can access Zoom. You don't need that right now. I don't know what's gonna look. I don't know what's gonna happen the last year and a half. So we could, by all means, we could not, a month or two from now, they could do what they did in that spring semester when everything started, and we can just go remote. That is on the table. So I would just kind of think about that ahead of time, like make sure if that does happen, you do have a way to access Zoom, and then I can use Zoom through Canvas, and we'll talk more about that if that happens. I pray to God it doesn't, but just so we're aware, who knows what's going to happen in this. I always put the lectures out at the beginning of the week, so they should be up there very latest Sunday nights. Sometimes I'll probably even put them out the Friday, before the week starts. If I have a really fun weekend, they might not show up there till Monday morning. So, but they will be for the entire week. So I won't go class by class because the way I teach, I like to allow a lot of flexibility so that we can focus on things if people are having a hard time with it. And if things are seeming easy and people have, most people have a certain background, we can maybe go a little quicker through different things. So, I post everything at the beginning of the week, gives us a little bit more flexibility. Ignore this because this is for, I have to take this out. I'll put the recordings on YouTube, right? So here's the link to the playlist on YouTube. I think if you click on it right now, nothing will show up. It's also, here it is, in the syllabus down here. I will post, and I'll show it to you right now. Right, so there is a playlist. If you go onto YouTube right now and search Professor Lantis, probably the easiest way to get to our YouTube page. And then we'll have the playlist ECON 221 Honors Fall, or so that ECON 221 Honors Fall 21. Right? It doesn't show up right now because there's no videos up there. As soon as I get the first video in there, that playlist will be up there, and I'll put all the videos for this class in there. Right. So today's recording of me kind of talking, and I'm just capturing the screen as well. So everything I'm doing on the screen is going to be captured in that recording as well. You won't have the nice hand gestures that I'm doing as I'm talking, but right, you'll be able to see what's up on the screen. Okay. So that I'll upload today's up there. So playlist should be available probably around 2:33 today once I get it back to my office and everything kind of uploaded. So that'll be a good resource. So we've got that in there. I'm also going to use some additional recordings. Usually these will be around exam times, me working through practice problems so that you can, like any problem on the practice exam I give you, you can see me work through it. We'll be able to get through some of them in class, but not all of them. And so I'll be putting up these additional videos closer to the exam. Also, when it comes to these Excel assignments, anything I do in Excel, well, anything that's substantial related to eventually we'll talk about are the Excel assignments. I'll put up some self-contained videos like Excel, confidence intervals. That's way down the road, and then you'll have that video, be able to see me work through an example of creating confidence intervals in Excel, which you can use as like a template for the assignment, right? So I'll be putting in some additional videos here and there, but most of it's going to be things that I'm doing in class, and that if you miss it, or that even if you're here, you can go back and take a look at it. Right? That's one good thing for me that came out of the pandemic, as I said, this is really low cost for me to leave Zoom recording my voice right now and recording anything I have to do in Excel or on the slides, and you can always go back and look at that as an additional resource. One thing I might also try to use a little bit in this class, I'm really going to use them in my non-honors classes because I think I need them a little bit more. I don't think I need them with you guys as much. Hopefully you guys prove me right. But I might put up these kind of like little pre-class videos, which will be like a 5-minute long thing that, video on YouTube that'll just kind of get you prepared for the next topic that we're going to go over in the following class. So let's say I did one today. I would tell you right now in class, I put an announcement on Canvas and say, I expect you to watch the title of this video on our YouTube page before we start class Wednesday. Like I said, I'm not going to make them long, 5 minutes, right? Me working through a problem or something. And then at the start of the next class, one thing we haven't talked about yet is, so eventually I'll talk about the grades, but we're going to use iClickers in this class, or if you want to use the mobile app Reef, right? It allows me to kind of collect information from you guys, understand what you are understanding, what you're not, to kind of better direct my teachings in the following class periods. Also, a really nice way for me to kind of inflate your grade, basically by you just putting in a little bit of effort, showing up to class, right? So those pre-class videos, if I do some of them with this section, I might start out the next class with a couple iClicker questions related to it. Now, don't sit there and watch it 4 or 5 times worrying, because you'll eventually see the iClicker, even if you get it wrong, you're only going to lose a point or two. And I'm going to try to keep the questions very easy. It's more of a way for me to like put a little bit of an incentive for you just to like get primed, right? Get your mind primed for what we're going to talk about, so I can spend actual class time really focusing on the more difficult aspects of those concepts. Does that make sense? Okay. So I've got the tentative exam dates up there. I'll never make them earlier. If we get closer to these and I'm like, try to pack a little bit too much material in, we need like 1 or 2 more classes, I might move them forward a day or so, right? But I'm expecting them to kind of be these dates right now. 90% certain. I had to put a number on it. We've got our final exam time already slated, and I just put some additional dates up there that apply to all classes. In the syllabus, I put up all the holidays and days that we'll miss in class as well, just so you have it all kind of in one place. So what do you really care about, especially since you're an honors program relative to not an honors section? You guys care a lot more about your grades from what I've seen, right? But not in a bad way. A bad way for them, but for you guys, it's a good thing, right? So 50% of the class is going to be from exams, which obviously, like anytime I'm taking a class, I want to see this be as low as possible. 50% is not that bad. But another thing that's really going to help is I'm going to weight them all differently. So we will have 3 exams, 2 midterms, and a final. The final won't be comprehensive. So they're going to be kind of like 3 kind of like self-contained modules, so to speak, in this class. Your best exam will count for 20% of your overall grade, second best 17.5, but then your worst will only be 12.5, right? So if you have a bad exam, I don't know, you procrastinated, you had other classes where you had like 4 exams like in the same day, I don't know, hopefully that's not the case, but something crazy like that, you just don't do that well. It doesn't get weighted near as much as the exams where you did perform well. So I think this allows me to more accurately capture your mastery of all the topics. So this kind of makes the 50% part not as scary, or it shouldn't. And trust me, when I look at the grade books, like it helps out a lot by me doing this. Okay. Homework's gonna be 40% of the grade. So relative to my usual sections, a little bit more of the grade comes from this because I know what you guys can do. I also want to set you guys up for success. So we've got a couple different types of homework. We're going to have these Excel and Connect homework. So Connect is the one that you have to get on and register for. Also, it has those additional tools like the Learn Smarts. But these Excel projects, I know you're not going to like them. I think I have a slide for them here in a bit. But I know that they're beneficial. I've had not just honors students, but plenty of other ones where part of their interview was they were given an Excel project they had to return back to the company. For internships, similar thing. They've had to do these as part of their like application process. They do, some of these Excel projects. I've had students reach out to me after they leave and get a job. Man, like just knowing the basics, like what I thought was crazy in Excel, I now understand was like basics, but it's given me, allowed me to stand out in my job because other people don't know this. So I'm the go-to person. So it looks good to my manager and I've learned more, so I know that having some knowledge of how to work with data in Excel is very beneficial. For most of you, you'll take upper level courses where you're probably going to start using other data programs like Stata, SAS, and other things that are even more complicated, but I just want us to understand the basics. And Excel gives us a pretty good look at how we can start working with data, not with pencil and paper, right? So I know you'll hate those, but those are good. And then we have the individual assignments. So all of these are graded for correct answers. Like it's not like there's some classes I'm sure I've used things like the Learn Smarts where you just do it and you get 100%. All these you have to get the correct answer, but you also have me as a resource. I told you I'd never give you one of these where you don't have 2 weeks to work on it. In that 2 weeks, I fully expect you, if you don't understand it, to reach out to me. I want to help you. I want to help you get as many points as possible on all these assignments, right? So ask questions early. Make sure we get as many points as possible. So these individual assignments, I'll go over a little bit more here in just a second. But each one of these categories, at the end of the semester, I'm going to drop the lowest of each. So I'll drop your lowest Excel assignment grade, your lowest individual assignment grade, and your lowest Connect grade, right? So, you know, if you don't do too well, you procrastinated on one, didn't make a grade, I'll kind of drop the lowest there. So that'll help grades out a lot. So. And then the last thing, I could read quizzes. I think maybe in one of the early versions of the slides that I posted up prior to class starting, this said online quizzes. They're not going to be online. We're going to use the iClickers in class. I'll use them most classes, not every class. Some classes I may not have a question. But the way that these are going to be scored is, you know, I'll put something up on the board. So, hey, you got like a minute and a half, 2 minutes to work on this. Multiple choice, and then you enter in A, B, C, or D. If you're correct, you get a point. If you're incorrect, you get 0 for that question. However, every class I use the iClickers at least once, we're going to start out with a base number of points. So let's say we have 3 questions. The base points for simply being in class and responding, like having a pulse, would be 7 out of 10. And then for each question you get correct, you get 1 more point. So if you get them all correct, 10 out of 10. Right? So even if you're not able to pick things up as quick on the fly in class, you're not going to be overly penalized for it through those iClickers. It's really just a way for me to get you, to give you a way to improve your grade simply by effort, right? Increase your effort in this course, right? Doesn't really take a whole lot of ability here. Right? Everything in life to me is ability effort, right? Whether about it's the number of sales you make, the number of units you produce to the company, the grade you get in class. I have some starting ability, and I can pass people of higher ability if I put in more effort, right? Now, there's some aspects where I don't even need that much ability. I just got to show up and enter some questions in to get those base points, right? That's just effort, right? So this is a way to kind of just use that, have your grade reflect the effort you're putting in your class, putting the time in to show up and then listen to the lecture, watch me work these, Excel data sets. And yeah, that should add up to 100%. Hopefully my math checks out there, right? 40, 50, 10. Yeah. Any questions on any of that? I feel like I've been talking too long. No questions? Oh, let's hope there's a question. All right. So here's I walked through kind of some steps of how to register Connect. I already showed you the other resource. It's not that difficult, right? So one nice thing with Connect, you can buy this access code. It gives you a e-version of the book. So even if you want a version, if an e-version or a PDF is fine with you, then that comes with that Connect code. If you still want a physical copy, like I said, find a first or second edition that's used, spend like 10, 15 bucks on it. And I think here I have the Connect homework 1 icon. I've actually got those Learn Smarts already up there. So if you want to get registered before the first homework, you can click on those links. I would actually suggest that just to get it out of the way so that when that first homework does pop up early next week, we'll be good to go. So I already mentioned stuff about the Excel assignments. It'll probably be, I always, like I say, I kind of keep things in this class fluid. So there'll be about 4 or 5 Excel assignments, 4 or 5 individual assignments, and I can kind of promise like probably 5 Connect assignments. Right? So some of them, sometimes they'll overlap, but like I said, I'll never have it. So when I assign it, the very earliest it will be due is 2 weeks from that date. Okay, so a good bulk of time to work on. Now, when I assign them, I would suggest working on them early, because let's say I assign the first Connect assignment, and then you've got 2 weeks to work on it. After a week goes by, I assign the first Excel assignment. Well, now you've got things overlapping. You're trying to work on both. Now the due dates will always be kind of staggered, but working on things along as we go, I think is always helpful, right? So that first week, work through as many problems as you can based off the coverage or material we covered that first week. Then the second week, you only have half the problems to go, and you can kind of finish out whatever the next topic we're talking about. Told you how important they are, how all these stories I've heard after people leave. You might hate them, but don't be afraid to come and ask for help. Like I really, that's what I hope. Hopefully, one of the things you walk away today with is that like I'm very accessible. Like I want to help. If you reach out, we can find a time that works. If my office hours don't work, yeah, I want you guys to leave this class with a good knowledge of how to use statistics to make better choices. So the individual assignments, I said, it's been a little more time on. So I think actually I'm going to get this posted up later this afternoon. And like I said, there'll be about 4 or 5 of these, and they're all going to be equally weighted. Same thing with the Connect and Excel. Every assignment is kind of worth the same number of points. And these will be graded for correctness. I'll be pretty kind on these, probably a little bit more kind on these than I will be on the Excel assignments. However, these are going to look a little bit different than the Excel assignments. You are going to have to use Excel for these. Maybe not the first one, but all the other ones. But I think these will be fun. I mean, a lot of times we get some cool things at the end of the semester that come up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create these homework assignments that are really like the generalized questions. Each one of you is going to choose a subject or a topic or something that you just find remotely interesting. Right? Hopefully you find it very interesting, but like just something that you might have more interest in than just a random data set that I give. Right? So I think what I have is this first assignment, which will pop up on Canvas later today. I think the first question reads something similar to, choose a subject or area that you want me to help you find a data set on that you would find interesting in using for the rest of the class. Just because you choose it now, if you want to change it throughout the semester, we can change the data set you use moving forward. But I'm trying to get you to think about something that you would think is interesting to look at. You may not know if data exists or what even a data set would look like on that topic, but at least if you're working with things along the semester that are related to that topic, you'll be at least somewhat happy, right? Because you're thinking about something that you like. For some people it might be sports, other people it might be, labor market stuff. I've had people I had someone I got Magic the Gathering data set for. So yeah, anything you can, I have shark bite data, really anything that you're interested in, we can try to find some data on. So I'll get that first assignment up there. And what this is going to allow me to do is get you a data set. I'm not going to expect you to do the data collection. I'm going to assist you in doing that, right? So as long as you give me something and you have an idea, I'll probably send an email back and be like, well, what do you think of a data set that would look like this? And I think that the dates it's due is what, September 3rd. So you've got a little bit of time to think about this. Once I look at everything you guys have turned in September 3rd, I might send you some emails back like, hey, what do you think about this? And then you can use that data set moving forward for the next 4 individual assignments that we'll do. Okay. To give you a little bit, before I ask about if there's any questions, give you an idea about some other data sets I have. So I've got a bunch of education data where it has like standardized test scores, kind of like the ISTEP. Yeah, that's what it's called, ISTEP. Right? I grew up, it was what do they call it? I grew up in Michigan. ME something or other. But it's got a bunch of different student characteristics. I've got a bunch of county level data, so economic data, so unemployment, characteristics about the citizens, so racial breakdowns, gender breakdowns, income measurements. I teach a sports econ course, so I have a pile of sports data, if any of you are interested in that. Like I said, I mentioned some other ones already, like Magic the Gathering, there's some goofy ones. I've done things like look at drug arrests. I have a big traffic stop data set. I've got a ton of data. So if you're interested in something, I probably have it or I can help you find something. That'll be due September 3rd. Whether or not you want to bring it to class, or there will be an option where you can upload it to Canvas under the link that'll show up after class today. Okay. Any questions on this? Nothing's off limits. Choose something that you think will be fun. And I'll make the. Who did I have? What's her name? Not Courtney. I'm not gonna remember her name. I can picture her. Anyways, she wanted me to find something on like hobbies, like the use of like arts and crafts, and we found something that worked for that. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing's off limits. So how do you pass this class? Come to class, pay attention. This one I don't have to worry. The honor section is pretty good about this. Look through those Learn Smarts or watch the pre-class videos if you're kind of finding along the way you're having some difficulty. These will kind of help you get primed for class and be able to identify in class a little bit more like, okay, this is where I really need to ask a question about this topic, because after watching that video, after looking at, reading through that Learn Smart, even though I didn't have to, I really didn't understand this thing. So I can make sure I ask questions when I get to class about that. Do the homework. I mean, a 50 is a hell of a lot better than a 0. Like a 0 can really hurt your grade. 50 is not great for it, but it's not going to kill you for the rest of the semester. Right? You're not going to be playing super catch up. So, right, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. The great Michael Scott. Once again, if you walk away with anything today, I'm accessible. 2:33:30 for my office hours, Monday and Wednesday after class. So I need like a half-hour break to go get something to eat, and I'll be back in my office. 11 to 1, Tuesday, Thursdays. Those are the times I will be in my office. Well, be in that hallway. I might be down the hall talking to someone, but I during those time slots will be in the building and somewhere within the vicinity of my office where I will see you if you show up. Other than that, I'll be around a lot. Tuesday, Thursdays, I'm pretty open. So if those time slots don't work for you, shoot me an email. We can set up another time and make something work. Okay. I have a GA. I don't have his office hours yet. You guys know Sam? He was in the honors program. He might be. I think he might have actually graduated last spring. I think he might have started the MBA program. But he actually took this course with me in the honors section, so he'll be a helpful resource as well. So help me help you. Anybody know where this movie is from? This screenshot? Tom Cruise. Starting to feel old. The second section I didn't know. So this is from Jerry Maguire. If you guys haven't watched that movie, you should go watch it. It's great. I'll give you movie suggestions the whole way throughout this semester. So, all right, where are we at in time? Okay, so we'll jump into a little bit about kind of what this semester is going to look like in terms of the material. We'll start a little bit of material today. But I think should have gotten most of the logistics out of the way. So no more questions on any of that before I move on, just to double check. Okay. So I put up a few data sources that we'll be using throughout the semester. We're going to use a lot more. If I ever show you something and I don't tell you where it came from, feel free to ask. I should always know it off the top of my head. And if I don't, I can find it very quickly after class. So, but yeah, we'll use things like, economic data, some labor statistics data, we'll look at some finance stuff. I've got a bunch of these surveys. Like this survey started in 1979. I probably said it was 78, but I'm thinking this probably means it started in 79. And they follow people throughout their whole lives, asking questions every year, like what their income level was. They take, more and more college classes. They ask them about alcohol and drug behavior. They ask them to take these psychological tests. So tons of data about individuals. So that'll be something that we'll take a look at. It's pretty fun. So I mentioned earlier, I think this should be called like applied statistics. If we took a statistics course in the math department, they'd be like super technical on the theory and they really care. I care that we can apply things. That's why I'm teaching you how to use Excel, right? So another thing that I want us to do is the more knowledge we have about statistics, the more we should be able to call out bullshit, right? So you should be able to see people lying with statistics and be like, yeah, no, that inference does not accurately reflect what those statistics you cited actually are saying. All right, so we'll go through a couple examples, and hopefully by the time we get to the end of the semester, we'll have plenty more we could actually kind of work through as well. So example one would be California has more teachers than Arizona, so therefore California must care more about their children's education. So why does this inference make no sense based? That's a true stat, but
California's huge and Arizona's not nearly.
Yeah, I pray to God they have more teachers, right? They've got way more students, right? So we're just using the wrong statistic. If we wanted to make that inference, we would need not just the number of teachers, but probably something more like teachers per student, right? Or children per teacher, whatever, however we look at that ratio. So sometimes, think about, is what they're saying actually reflected in the statistic they're citing? Right? And if not, is there another statistic that could be better that could kind of support that statement? The other one, I'll try not to use too many sports examples in this class, but sometimes they pop up from here from time to time. So we've got this idea that 6 of the last 10 World Series were won by a small market team. So what that means is small markets are smaller cities that don't have as much, generate as much revenue. Therefore, they can't spend as much money on players and they aren't as good. So we always expect small market teams in any sport to not do as well. So if we have the last 6 out of 10, we're small market, we're saying, well, money doesn't buy championships now. It doesn't matter, right? But what probably happens, why didn't they go back 11 years? Because if they went back to the 11th year and a small market team won, it would be 7 out of 11 instead of 6 out of 10, which is a better percentage, right? Well, what's probably true is in that 11th year, a small market team didn't win. So now instead of 6 out of 10, it's 6 out of 11, right? And maybe if you go back to the 12th year, it's only 6 out of 12, right? anytime that you see data censored or it starts and stops, like they're only looking at the last 18 years. Why didn't you go back to 20? 20 seems nice and round. There must be something weird about those 2 years that you decided not to include. Anytime they censor data, think about why. Right? Probably because it doesn't tell the story. You know, the other years probably don't support the story that they want to tell you. This is one of my favorite examples, and I always burn it day one. But a study found that 90% of bar fights that resulted in a death, that 90% of the time, the person who died was the one who started the fight. So karma is a fill in the blank. So what's kind of weird about this one? There's a bar fight. Let's just assume all bar fights are 2 people just to make it easy. Who's the only person left? The one who didn't die. Do you think they're going to report that they started the fight, right? So, I mean, the fact that this isn't 100% is insane, because a person who killed someone is telling you like 10% of them are saying, yeah, I started the fight that led to this person dying, right? And it's crazy that it's even 10% instead of 0. So we need to think about who we're collecting data from. So a lot of the times this really applies when we're looking at surveys, right? If I'm asking, a bunch of college kids about their drug use in a survey, I'm probably not going to get the most accurate information, right? They're probably not going to give me the most accurate data. So I have to think about how can I better collect that data, right? To avoid the different biases that might exist. And we'll talk way more about biases later on this semester, but this is kind of that general idea. And then the age-old statistics example, we'll get into this probably the last third of the class, but correlation versus causation, right? So if I look at ice cream sales and drowning deaths, they're both highly positively correlated. So when drowning deaths go up, so our ice cream sales are also going up. So ice cream, we should stop selling ice cream, right? Because it's causing people to drown. Well, no, we know that's stupid, but they are highly positively correlated. Why? When do both of these things happen? Yeah, when it's hot, right? So as the temperature goes up, it drives up both ice cream sales and drowning deaths, because more people are likely to be in a pool, and so, or ocean or lake, whatever. So we're forgetting an outside factor, right? We're leaving out an important variable or piece of information. Okay? So we'll dive way more into that, like I said, towards the end of the semester. But these are all ways we can start thinking about, like, we're going to be able to identify people making statements that don't line up with statistics by the end of the semester. So I said I'll try not to use too much sports data. I grabbed this one because it was real easy. And I didn't feel like making up 10 random people, their positions at a company, and their salaries, right? It's exactly what I have here. Right? This could be any company, right? I just have the names of the employees, the position that they have at the firm, and how much that firm's paying them. This just happens to be a sports team, right? But those 3 variables would exist for any other data set. So here, I've got my data set. And what we're going to call every single row, those are going to be our observations. Usually they're people, right? So usually these observations are individuals, but they can be countries. They can be companies. They could be universities, right? It just depends on what level we've collected data on. Here we're at the individual level, but each row we'll call that a single observation. I'll never call them elements. The book occasionally will refer to them as elements. The stats department people would definitely probably call them elements, but here in the business college, I would imagine it'd be hard to find someone that wouldn't refer to these as observations, each row. So for each observation, we then have variables that we collect information on for each one of these observations. So we have all these different players. We collect data on their name, their position, and their salary. So we have 3 variables here: name, position, and salary. So variables are going to be our columns. The observations are our rows. Might seem kind of rudimentary, but we're starting off like we have no idea about what we're. So some of you might have some experience, but any questions here? Probably not yet. So we're going to briefly just talk about different types of data because as we start, we'll be focusing a little bit more on one of them. And then as we get into newer material, we'll really kind of only focus on the other. So first type is qualitative. This is basically non-numbers. That's the easiest way I can put it. There's a textbook definition I have up here, but basically you're recording something about these observations that is non-numerical. Okay? So this could be things like, I don't know, if I had a used car data set, the color of the cars, right? If I had survey data, hair color of an individual. If I had, if I go back to this data set, player name and position. Those are non-numerical values, right? So those are my qualitative variables. The second category is going to be quantitative, right? You might have already heard this, quantitative analysis or quantum mechanics, right? It's numbers, right? Numerical. So quantitative, right, is where we have a variable that we're collecting information for every observation on, and it's recorded as a number, right? A numerical value. Okay? So those are kind of two broad categories. Oh, and I have another example I guess we could think about. If I had a used car data set, if color was the qualitative variable, the quantitative variable would be the mileage on the car, right? It's a numerical value I can record for each car. So these are the things right now that will get lost in the recordings. But if you're taking notes, hopefully they'll help. So we can break these two categories down a little bit more, right? So the first qualitative type of variable we'll talk about is a nominal qualitative variable. So still, we're dealing with now only non-numerical variables, but not just non-numerical. If it's nominal, right, it's a category that has no intrinsic value. Another way to think about this is if I have a nominal variable, I can't rank the data based off of it. So that would be something like hair color, baseball positions in the other data set. A lot of the time when we look at this survey data, and this is a much larger sociological discussion, obviously we know that this doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the world we live in, but gender a lot of the times is simply going to be recorded as male, female, right? So it's not ideal, right? But if we also look at like the one that always makes me laugh, it shouldn't make me laugh, it's kind of sad, but like the census, right? They have like 6 or 7 different race categories, but we could make that into a lot more, right? And so they've really kind of condensed it down. So it's like, sometimes we're just dealing with data and it may not be ideal, right? It may not be recorded the way that we want it, but sometimes, we'll work with it as it's reported, right? So none of these things though, can we really rank people based, or we shouldn't be ranking people based on, right? I can't say, yeah, all the people with red hair are better than the people with blonde hair, but like that's stupid, right? So I can group people, right? I can say like all of these individuals have a similar characteristic, all have blonde hair, all have brown hair, but I can't like rank the observations. So if we go back, right, really both of these were nominal variables, player name and position. Right? So the other kind we have, I guess I'm using a different color because I grabbed a different color marker, is ordinal, right? So we just kind of think about these are the two, here's the larger umbrella, and these are the two I have underneath. So an ordinal variable is still non-numerical, but it has some intrinsic value, or I can rank the observations based off this variable. So think about at the end of the semester, you will say overall, if I've been an effective teacher, and you choose one of these 5 options, right? Well, if I looked at all your responses, I could say the people who responded with strongly agreed thought I was a better teacher than the people who just agreed, and they think I'm a better teacher than the neutral people. So I can rank all the observations. Okay? Another example would be education level. A lot of times when we look at this survey data, we'll see how much education someone has. Well, I know someone that has a college degree can be ranked above someone who only has a high school degree. Right? So that's another example. I have words still, right? I have words here, but I can rank the observations still based off of this ordinal qualitative variable. Another great example are letter grades. Where am I at? Here it is. Okay. When I submit grades to the registrar, all you see on the all you see is the letter grade. You don't see if you had a 92.3 or a 95.9. Right? So I can rank the observations. A's I know had to have been higher than A minuses and higher than B pluses. But within the category of, say, A's, I don't know if 2 people got an A, I can't rank them because I don't know which one had 94.9 and who had a 98.2, right? So we can rank the data, but not perfectly, just in relationship to the responses that I can see. All right, we'll finish this off and I'll kind of let you out a little bit. So the other two types of the other category of quantitative variables, we have discrete and continuous. Right? So this becomes more important here in a couple weeks. Excuse me. But discrete variables are basically going to be numerical, right? They're still quantitative. So they're numbers. But basically, the examples that we'll work with, anytime we see discrete data, it'll be just the integers, right? So there's going to be gaps in between what I can see reported. So for instance, if I ask you the number of siblings you have, you can tell me 0, 1, 2, 3. If you tell me you have 1.5 siblings, I don't, I got to call the cops or something, right? So, I mean, I can only see integer values when I'm looking at that variable. If I ask you the number of times you do something a week, or the number of days you do it, a week, well, if you do it, let's say you had a drink, right, on I don't know, today. Well, you've drank 1 day out of the week so far, right? I mean, you can't drink 1.5 days, right? Once you do it on that day, it now counts as kind of that whole day. So you might only see integer responses to a question like that. If we think about this like a visual number line, right? I can see 1, I can see 5, but I can't see 7.394, right? I can't see any of those decimal values in between. Now, sometimes at this point, I get people who want to be real nitpicky and say, well, what if I had like, I was thinking about income, right? You could, well, hold on. We'll come back to that example. I'll say something about continuous. The other type we have is continuous, right? This is just a variable that it can be any number. So it's not just integers. We'll get down here, right? I can see 6.3952178 right, out to any decimal point. If it's truly a continuous variable, I can see any value as a response. So if I could measure it really, really precisely, height and weight could actually go out to whatever decimal I wanted, as long as the instrument I had was accurate. Income, we will use as a continuous variable, right? So this is where I'll sometimes get a little bit of pushback, where someone goes, yeah, but Professor Lannis, by how you're describing this, income is actually a discrete variable. So why could you argue that income or salary is discrete? So I said that the examples we'll use, they're all going to be only integer responses, but all a discrete discrete variable means is that there's gaps in the responses you can see. So why could you argue salary is technically discrete? Yeah. So that's how I want you to think about variables for the rest of this semester that we're going to do. Anytime you see a decimal, you should be thinking continuous. Anytime you don't see a decimal, like you can only see those integer responses, discrete. The one reason why you could argue,
33 cents is different than 33 cents.
Right. Technically, with income, there are gaps. They're at the second decimal, right? Because the lowest denomination we have is a penny, right? Now, that's getting very technical. The fact that we can go out to the second decimal and we have such a wide range of incomes, we can treat this continuous and theory is still upheld. So the rule of thumb for this class is going to be if you could see a decimal recorded for that variable, continuous. If it's only integers, discrete. The math people might fight me a little bit on that because like, well, technically, that's salary is discrete. Which leads me into another movie suggestion. Right. Well, we have here, you can kind of imagine we have salary. We'll kind of start out next class with types of data, but I'll end on a movie suggestion, which is if you haven't seen Office Space, the whole premise of the movie is that like actually when you are paid, because if things are broken down into like multiple pay periods, it's actually stored out past the second decimal on a computer, and they get into hijinks about chopping it off and start storing it, and they make all this money. But it's a hilarious movie. It's like young Jen Aniston. Who else is in it? Can't remember the actor. Anyways, should all watch Office Space. It's hilarious. Professor Nesson would also be proud of you. So maybe that's your homework assignment, right? So along with trying to get registered for Connect, register your iClickers on Canvas. Just on that left-hand side of Canvas, there should be iClicker registration. Get those registered. I won't start using the iClickers until next Monday, but quicker we get out of the way, the easier. I'll get that first individual assignment up there so you can start thinking about what data set you're interested in. Feel free to email me if you have questions on that. Other than that, I will see you guys on Wednesday.